Economists are saying Nigeria's current balance of payment position is weak and may not be able to support any major military engagement outside its borders. There's also the possibility that an escalation in the defense budget to prosecute any military interventions would trigger a surge in fiscal deficit, worsen inflationary pressures, and spike debt levels, as well as other related debt service burdens. Now, according to President Bola Tinubu, the country has now been able to save 1 trillion naira after the removal of fuel subsidy. If Nigeria decides to go ahead with a military campaign in Niger, its defense spending may have to increase substantially. Over 70% of the spending would also have to be foreign exchange. How could Nigeria's military intervention in Niger affect investor confidence, growth prospects, and the pace of economic recovery, as well as the GDP? Let's look into that right now. Dr. Muda Yusuf, the CEO, Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, joins me on the phone as we look into this developing situation. Dr. Yusuf, welcome again to Business Edge. Thank you as always for joining me.
Thank you very much. My pleasure to be with you.
So I think we need to start with an understanding of sort of the economic and trade and business relationship between Niger and Nigeria, because the possibility of Nigeria's military intervention in Niger is one that is looming, even though we know that the Senate did reject the president's request to deploy troops recently. So in terms of the economic connections between Nigeria and Niger, how strong are they? What do they entail, and how far back do they even go?
Well, in terms of trade between Nigeria and Niger, that's at the bilateral level, it may not be that significant, at least going by official records. But I do know that there's a whole lot of informal trade that are largely unrecorded that takes place between Nigeria and Niger, particularly with respect to agricultural products and livestock. A whole lot of that takes place between Nigeria and Niger. But more importantly is to look at it within the context of ECOWAS, because ECOWAS is basically an economic bloc. That's why it is called Economic Community of West African States. And the whole objective is economic integration. So if you find a situation where this conflict degenerates to a military campaign, then we are likely to see a complete negation of the whole essence of ECOWAS, of economic integration, not only in the West African sub-region, even on the African continent. That's talking about the African continental
free trade agreement
area.
Yes.
Yeah. So it has quite a large implication.
So let's look at this ECOWAS situation you brought up. I had it further down, but we'll go ahead and move it up now, because as you mentioned, this could actually really hit at the heart of ECOWAS' fundamental objectives, which is, of course, regional trade and integration. And there are really far-reaching macroeconomic trade, security, and other implications to be had when it comes to this situation. So when we look at what could happen, because again, as I said, Nigeria's Senate has rejected the president's request for deploying troops, but it doesn't mean that situation cannot change. In terms of the macroeconomic and trade implications for the ECOWAS sub-region, let's get deeper into that. What do you think they look like if we go ahead and have a military intervention by Nigeria or any other country that supports in the sub-region to Niger? And we do see some other countries are also on Niger's side in regards to this. So that also creates geopolitical tensions as well.
Well, you know, when we talk about ECOWAS engaging in any military intervention, almost 80% of the financial burden and even the human capital requirements in terms of troops will have to be contributed by Nigeria. Because if you look at history, when we had ECOMOG, that was in 1990, there was a problem in Liberia, civil war, we had to intervene. 80% of the troops that were deployed for that operation were Nigerian troops. And we lost not less than 500 of them in that military intervention. And it cost Nigeria about $8 billion US. We thought it was going to be a short intervention. But it turned out to be about 7 years. ECOMOG spent 7 years in Liberia. And what did we get out of it? Nothing concrete really to show in terms of our own strategic interests. So the worry is that whether it is ECOWAS that is taking the decision or Nigeria, the issue is that once ECOWAS steps in and Nigeria gives the consent, all the ECOWAS member states look up to Nigeria to take leadership in terms of shouldering the responsibilities, financial and otherwise, of prosecuting that military intervention. And given the fragile state of our economy, we are just trying to recover. The current administration is still trying to correct some distortions, major distortions in the economy. They are just undertaking some reforms. The citizens are still struggling to adjust to the challenges of this reform. So if we have that kind of situation, and we now jump into this thing, even though it's coming within an ECOWAS umbrella, it's going to create major challenges for us on the economic front. We are just struggling with our fiscal consolidation. You just said in your background report about how much savings we have made from the subsidy. We are just trying to balance and rebalance our fiscal position so that we reduce our debt, we reduce our debt service burden, and we restructure the way we appropriate resources so we can develop other critical aspects of our economy like infrastructure, like education, like health, like transportation. So these are the immediate challenges that is confronting us as a country. Then we have the social problems that this economic reform has also thrown up. The citizens are complaining about high cost of food. They are complaining about high cost of transportation. They are complaining about high cost of energy. These are immediate challenges that we need to confront. So if within our own environment we are facing this, and the primary responsibility of the government is first and foremost to the citizens of Nigeria. Before we begin to talk about ECOWAS, charity must begin at home. So that is why we are looking at the fiscal implication and also even the balance of payment situation. Because to prosecute a war outside your territory, you require a lot of foreign exchange.
Yes.
Because the cost of prosecuting a war is going to be foreign exchange intensive. And look at what is happening in our foreign exchange market. We are still grappling with the problem of volatility in the foreign exchange market. We are grappling with the problem of liquidity in that market. So if you, on top of this, if you now jump into this kind of responsibility, it will also create a whole lot of problem for us, even within the context of our balance of payment position. Because we don't have the reserve to begin to support any huge foreign exchange or foreign currency commitment. So from whatever angle you look at, and even from the point of view of investment, how do you attract an investment into an economy that is in war? Granted, yes, you may be the aggressor, or whether you are the aggressor or you are the victim, it has challenges for the economy. It has challenges about perception of your country as an investment destination. Because nobody can predict how far it will go. Because we need to look beyond Niger. I mean, you just said in your background report how some other military junta within the sub-region are pledging their support. From Burkina Faso, from Mali, and maybe from Guinea. They are all supporting this military junta. Then there's a very serious geopolitical dimension to it. Because of the issue between Russia and the West, the whole Sahel region is now becoming a theater of war, a theater of geopolitical competition. We don't want to get entangled in that kind of thing. So that is why we are saying, and I mean, that is almost the consensus among all the stakeholders in the country, that we need to take it easy. We need to at least exhaust diplomatic options. Because in any case, what is our strategic interest in Niger? Nothing. We don't have anything serious at stake. And when you go to war or you engage in military campaign with your neighbor, it can easily spill over. Easily. To the neighboring states, you have about 1,500, 1,600 kilometers of border with Niger. So there is a whole lot of innocent citizens, Nigerian citizens, who are living in the borders. What will happen to them? So there's a whole lot of ramifications
that needs to be made.
Required, yes, that needs to be taken into account.
So, Dr. Yusuf, I want us to go back to something because I like the fact that you've sort of drawn a line in this conversation. There's the consideration of Nigeria taking military action and also the consideration of ECOWAS as a regional bloc taking military action as well. And so this answer would also be a two-part answer, focusing first on Nigeria and then also on the ECOWAS situation. So we know the fiscal pressures and the fiscal situation that Nigeria currently finds itself right now. And while it seems almost insensitive in this situation to make it a dollars and cents, naira and kobo kind of situation, it does beg the question, knowing where things stand currently with Nigeria, if this is a war that Nigeria can actually afford to be invested or involved in. So as it stands, you mentioned, of course, the Liberian War, which took much longer than many people expected, also cost Nigeria an estimated $8 billion. That was then. This is now. We are completely in different economic times. We've gone through 2 recessions. We've gone through, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going through the Russia-Ukraine crisis. There are so many different headwinds that are putting pressure on the economies across the continent. So in terms of this situation, do you think Nigeria and even ECOWAS itself can actually afford, just using the basic definition of what afford is, afford to be involved or get into military intervention in Niger? Specifically, also coming back to your last statement there, what is Nigeria's real strategic involvement or interest in Niger as well, keeping that at the background? So can Nigeria afford this war? Can ECOWAS afford it as well?
Well, I don't think so, and I agree perfectly with your background on this particular question. Look at all the ECOWAS countries. How many of them are actually very stable? You know, Ghana is perhaps the economy that is perhaps next to Nigeria. Look at what is happening to the Ghanaian economy. Look at the kind of challenges they have been facing with their balance of payment position. They have been forced to go to the IMF, you know, to be able to get a bailout. And all these other countries are not so sound. Many of them are still grappling with some manner of neo-colonial challenges that they are facing, especially these francophone countries. There's a whole lot of neo-colonialism problems or hangovers that they are suffering from. So actually, across the sub-region, not many of the countries have the muscle or the financial resources to be able to engage in any serious war. Many of them actually are looking up to Nigeria, and Nigeria, of course, has its own problem. And what is even more disturbing or scaring or frightening is the geopolitical aspect of it. Because Russia and the West, they are taking all manner of interest in the whole of the Sahel region. So the thing may even escalate beyond whatever expectations we have at the moment. And I reference what happened with Economists in Liberia and also even in Sierra Leone. At that time, we don't have this kind of geopolitical context in the war at that time, and yet it cost us so much.
Yeah.
What will now happen now, where the dimensions of any engagement is now much wider? There are also all manner of interest all over the place. So both ECOWAS and and Nigeria, which is the leader of ECOWAS, cannot afford them. We can't afford it. So whatever we need to do to dialogue with this military junta, although they are also behaving in a very arrogant manner.
Yeah.
Because I saw the way they snubbed our delegation, and I was reading somewhere that even the AU representation were also snubbed. So if they continue to behave in such arrogant way, then I think we just have to be patient with them. Because the implications of attacking them will be worse than just giving them more long rope. So it's better to give them a long rope, tolerate them, and see how far we can go in achieving dialogue involving the AU, African Union, and involving possibly the UN. Because if you look at the history of military invasion, even across the world, look at the invasion in Somalia by UN. After spending billions of dollars, they didn't achieve anything. They had to pull out. Look at the invasion in Libya. What can we say today that either Libya or even the West has benefited apart from eliminating Gaddafi? Look at the invasion in Afghanistan. Look at the invasion in Iraq. what has been any significant concrete thing that has been achieved apart from completely destroying the country and making the people miserable?
So, Dr. Yusuf, I want to come in on that because I want to ask a question itself about Niger, and I want us to put back the visual we had of the trucks lined up. Now, there has, of course, been now a border closure between Nigeria and Niger, restrictions, and we know right now that there are a number of trucks lined up on particularly the Nigerian side, but on both sides because they can no longer access the border between Nigeria and Niger. We're already seeing economic situations. We're already seeing implications and, of course, repercussions and consequences for traders. There might be eventually in the next few weeks, if this continues, we might see wider implications in the economy for regular Nigerians and regular Nigerians. But beyond that, I want to ask about Niger itself. And when we get to that part, this is a very difficult thing to happen. So we're seeing a coup again in the West African sub-region, which has had a number of them in recent years. But very quickly, sanctions have been handed down to Niger, no flight zone, border closure, very other strict economic measures. So many are wondering if it's been too hasty and brash, of some kind of heavy hand that's been taken in this situation for a country that's regarded as one of the poorest countries in the world. So let's quickly look at this on the Nigerian side and the unfortunate implications also coming very quickly because of time.
Well, on the Nigerian side, you know, the mentality or the mindset of this military junta is such that all they care about is the power. They don't care about the welfare of the people. They don't care about the economy. They don't care about international relations. They don't care about practically anything. So for them, they don't have anything at stake. They don't care whether the countries get destroyed or whether they don't care. All they care about is their own ego, and they care only about power, that they have seized power. So for them, of course, their citizens are already taking a hit. Although when it comes to sanctions, sanctions can also be a double-edged sword. Because quite a number of our traders also trade with Niger, particularly along those border states. You can see the lineup of trucks on both sides. A lot of exports of agricultural products and things like that are done with Niger. And the victims of this are also Nigerians, partly, just as we have victims on the other side. So for them, they are also already behind the brunt of it. You know, so on the Nigerian side, of course, this can completely bring down the economy. It's an economy that is largely dependent on aid. They are largely dependent up to now on their colonial masters and all of that. The poverty level is very high. But do the military don't care? Of course they don't. They don't. It's all about ego and all of that. So for me, I think we need just to give them a long rope and see what we can do. Because when in military campaign or military intervention, the first you can't predict how far it will go.
Yeah. And it's the unpredictable nature that also makes it a very troubling situation for us. Dr. Muda Yusuf, CEO, Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, thank you so much for joining me. As I said earlier, it is a developing situation, of course, developing for Nigeria in terms of economic and further military implications, and also developing for the Nigerian side as well as ECOWAS. So we'll continue to keep touch with the situation there. Dr. Yusuf, as always, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
All right.